Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Arnis Luks here at the Freedom Forum, and I'd like to welcome Yves Potvin from Canada. Welcome, Yves.
Yes, good evening, good morning
That's it.
to the whole world.
That's it. It's about 7 in the morning where you are near Toronto. Even it's 10 to 10 in the evening here in Adelaide. So it's interesting because we really are on the other side of the world from each other. It's not
Completely.
it's not much different. I think that's fascinating because you'll be changing out of out of summertime in a couple of days' time, won't you?
Yeah, Saturday night,
Yeah.
2 o'clock Sunday morning.
Mhm.
So we'll have to change the clock, and we're
Mhm.
going to get a little bit more sleep after that.
Yep. Yep.
We get
Yep.
an hour extra.
Mhm.
It changes somebody's metabolism a little bit.
Mhm.
It kind of puts you in a different kind of state that
Mhm.
you feel it.
Mhm.
Okay, in the
Yeah.
spring you're a little more tense because you're going ahead.
Yeah.
So there is a feeling that they want to get rid of this time thing, but we'll see what happens.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's an interesting phenomenon because I agree. This year I found it particularly difficult to get onto the summertime because we've been on it for a little while, and yeah, I found it difficult, big deal. More so just adjusting the time. And yet, in my younger days, I was a shift worker, so I was adjusting my body clock every week. Every week, I'd go from day shift to afternoon shift to night shift, and then it was
Mhm.
days and nights with 12 hours. So it really did. I spent a lot of years with the body clock knocked around. Yeah. So that's an interesting comment you say that. Now, Eve, the topic for tonight, we call it Street People and Tent City. Um, in Australia, the homeless situation, it's not as I don't believe it's as prominent in as it is in North America, but I understand that in North America it is quite apparent, and people on the streets, and then of course the infrastructure that's being overloaded with more and more people who are on the streets, and of course the bitterly cold winters that come through, the snow, the sleet, the freezing temperatures, and of course the mortality rate for these homeless people. So it really is a desperate situation that you're looking at, Eve.
Yeah, it's in our day and age, you'd think, how can that happen?
Yeah.
We're we're in a nice warm home here, and it went down to about 1 or 2 last night. It's
Hmm.
going to get below freezing almost tonight,
Hmm.
but I can't see living in a situation like this. You can do this for a couple of days, but uh, some people only have a cardboard over them to protect them.
Yeah.
How how can you survive that?
Hmm.
But yeah, I was visiting a city just south of me, about an hour,
Hmm.
and they were on the news. They had been on the news for a few times, and people were making the public aware of the the terrible situation that's happening there. And they're showing Brantford has got a lot of people. The shelters are full. The motels are full.
Hmm.
Yet they have these people living in tents in this little park area where there's trees and so on.
Hmm.
They had a fire and so on. So I visited them and talked to them a little bit. Tried to give some insight or some education on what our group does that can help.
Hmm.
So I hope they're going to learn a little bit. But the fact is that okay, that's a city of Brantford. It's on the news. But you know what? Every city, major cities in Ontario that I know of, even Quebec, where I'm from originally, they have that same problem.
Hmm.
And the government will do something about it. Either put them in a shelter
Hmm.
or take them away, put them in jail because they're not wanted people around.
Hmm.
So they'll be with bags and shopping carts and so on and so forth, and they'll be going through the city looking for things, looking for little things to help. Like somebody's garbage is somebody else's treasure, and I
Yeah.
guess these people take advantage of that.
Yeah.
But most of the cities have this same problem. Brantford is one that put it on the news,
Hmm.
and now they have to push the council, the city, to do something about it. And they're
Mm.
talking about building shelters and so on and so forth.
Mm.
So I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I will be visiting these people in the next month because it's going to get very cold,
Yeah.
and I want to find out what's going on.
Yeah. No, that's a very vivid picture that you've painted. Thank you for that, Eve, because that really is, if you like, a current news topic. But it's also, to me, what we've got to do is we've got to actually, where is the root of the problem that forces people into homelessness, forces them into destitution? And in my view, it's quite clear. This is something that we've been warned about for 100 years, and that is the progressive indebtedness of individuals and governments through a fraudulent banking system. It's got to the point where Canada, not just Canada, but North America, Chicago, Detroit, that whole eastern, northeastern area has shut down its automotive industries. It's shut it down. And the thing is that when you take that sort of employment potential out of an area, and of course all the ancillary industries that work off that, that hang off it for viable sort of incomes and things like that, it deconstructs the whole communities. It deconstructs them. So no wonder it's so obvious that it's people are homeless and destitute. This is actually an outworking of financial policy, and it really, really is frustrating because we're looking at this and you're thinking these people are in dire straits, but the actual root cause of it, the root cause of it is essentially progressive indebtedness. I mean, this goes to me is in almost like biblical proportions. You've got to go back to history and say, well, when did this happen? When was it similar circumstances that this happened? And of course, it happens all the time, and it's happened for eons. It's happened for centuries, for millennia. It's happened when the financial system deliberately pursues a policy where they overwork something, exploit it, and then shut it down. And to me, that's what's going on. You know, I named Detroit and Chicago and that because of the automotive, but it's just that huge construction area, a huge manufacturing base, and one day it's turned off, and you wonder what happens to the people. It's to me, it's so obvious, and so you say, well, what is the immediate answer? The immediate answer, of course, is to get sustenance to these people and to also protect them from the environment. That's the immediate answer. But then the extended answer is to reconsider things like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, things like the Lima Declaration. These are actual agreements to exploit the resources, to exploit the assets of whole states, of whole nations, exploit them for private gain. And to me, it's totally exploitive, and it is wrong, wrong, wrong on every count. It is wrong that an asset like say a coal field or a water resource or an iron ore deposit or a bauxite deposit or whatever, power generation, an asset that really belongs to the community is exploited for a handful of individuals. Eve.
Yeah, the money is getting more and more into fewer and fewer hands, and the majority of society is kept into thinking that we're all right. These people are not working. That's their problem.
Hmm.
Okay, I want to achieve wealth. I
Hmm.
want to be up here and be the king, kind of thing. So there is no question of I'm not going to give my money, my hard-earned money, to these people. I've worked for what I have,
Hmm.
and these people. But you know what? A lot of people have a good heart. Yes.
Hmm.
Like if I had money, I'd probably go down there and give them $20 each. Let's say for that week, it would help them, wouldn't it?
Hmm.
Even $20, they would find. I needed a hat. So I got to buy this. So if you gave them a little bit of money, it would help. But the fact is that why don't we give people a dividend?
Hmm.
The dividend surely would help.
Mm-hmm.
But the first argument we hear is, oh, that'll create inflation.
Mm.
What we're talking about here is social credit.
Yeah.
And social credit has never been tried. And the inflation has gone haywire for the past 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
I used to buy a pack of, well, I used to smoke then, but I don't smoke anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
a pack of cigarette was like 59 cents, a dollar or whatever. Today
Mm-hmm.
they're $10 a package.
In
So that's
Australia,
inflation.
in Australia, cigarettes can be up to 40 Australian dollars. 40. I don't smoke, but when I was a pup, you could buy cigarettes for under 40 cents. And now it's $40. So it's gone
That's
up.
inflation.
That's an inflation of 100 times. That's an inflation of 100 times over my life. And to turn around and say that something is going to cause inflation. We've got rampant inflation in Australia. We had fuel. It really had a trouble getting past the $1 a litre barrier, but now it's $1.70. We've got inflation,
$1.70 a liter.
a
Yeah.
dollar seventy a litre, but no one's talking about it. And everyone who's got a job is just on the treadmill, going faster and faster and faster. But the answer's not there. I mean, this we talk about the street people and homelessness, and the fact is the whole system is collapsing, and it's deliberately its intention is to collapse. This is actually an outworking of government policy. It's an outworking of financial policy. Now the thing is that even the I notice here in Australia we've got supposedly conservative governments, conservative orthodox, if you like, traditional governments, and they're not pursuing socialist policies, but in actual fact they are. Everything that they're doing, every university is manned, is a revolutionary. Every pulpit is a revolutionary. Every organisation at the moment, we've got people being sacked because they speak out on issues that have got nothing to do with the industry that they work with, but simply they've got their own political point of view and they're being sacked. So that to me is corporatized fascism. And this is coming from supposedly conservative Christian political parties, and it's nothing like it. These are revolutionary parties, and they're filling up the universities and the pulpits with revolutionaries. The intention is the desire, the purpose behind these policies is to break down society. And the Conservatives are in it, boots and all. Don't think they're a viable alternative. They're nothing like it. These street people we're talking about, tent cities, this is an outworking of, if you like, orthodox financial policy by revolutionaries. They just happen to be in the Conservative Party. But this is the outworking of it. The politics, the purpose behind the politics, the purpose behind the finance is to actually make everyone destitute. And we really do need to wake up because it's the band-aid things that the city's trying to do, the mini homes and things like that, or homeless shelters, or using disused buildings or whatever. This is the band-aid treatment, whereas the actual root cause is the policy emanating from finance that the Conservative, or if you like, the governments are actually administering. They're not doing anything about changing it. Eve.
It boggles my mind because, I mean, they said they sent a man to the moon, and they can't even fix that. They can't even fix
Mm,
a little economy problem. I mean, it's not a huge problem, but you know what? The elites know about the answer. They know about the solution.
I know. Yeah.
How can we make them understand?
Hmm.
Can we talk to them again, like Mr. Douglas did in 1923? Can we gather them again and talk to them and put some sense into their head?
I think the only solution is if you like political pressure, Eve. Political pressure. And it's not violence in the streets, it's political pressure. It's activists, individual activists who know what they're about. They want a change in policy, a change in direction. So the purpose behind the finance, the economic system is to provide sufficient, is to provide sufficient. And that in a day of automation and robotics, it's not about jobs. It's about what we borrow to keep the economy going. We should be actually issuing as a dividend so that the debt disappears. But of course, the debt continues to escalate, and in the end, the private institutions we call banks, they own the whole world. They end up owning the whole world. That is so, so wrong. Eve.
Yeah, you talk about political pressure. Uh, I keep mentioning this thing in 1923 that happened, and we talked to the international bankers. Not
Mhm.
we, C.H. Douglas
Mhm.
talked to the international bankers. We've had movements
Mhm.
throughout the world
Mhm.
talking about social credit, talking about a free economic democracy.
Mhm.
So we have done some of the jobs, and I hope it kind of went into people's head a little bit, because some of them are going to have these big houses, and they cost like $1 million each. They have a mortgage to pay, and unemployment insurance won't pay for that. It'll kind of band-aid for a few weeks or a few days, but we need something a lot better than that.
Mhm.
You can look at places like the Philippines. You can think that the Philippines is a third world country. Not really. They have advancement. They have. You're close to the Philippines. You're
Mhm.
closer
Mhm.
than I am.
Yeah.
Uh, they have these tent city. They're not tent cities anymore. They're plywood city. I think they have like shelters made out of plywood.
Mhm.
And this is what I can see the city in Brantford there.
Yeah.
They're not going to give them any shelters for a while, so they're going to bring in these panels, or and they're going to make themselves shelters to be warm,
Yeah.
and they're going to stay there, and I don't blame them. So there's a young girl that was at that tent city, and I said, what are you going to do all winter? It's going to be cold and everything else. And she says, I don't care. She says, they told me you have to get out of here, that you can't live here. Who can say that I can't live here?
Mhm.
I'm a free Canadian.
Mhm.
Why can't I live here? Why? What's the law?
Mhm.
What stupid law made me want to move? Right now I'm free. I get some food. People help me, and so you have these people. They have some rights too. I just can't see the unless the city comes forth and they're going to put a band-aid. They're going to build some shelters or give some housing or something like this. But we need a lot more than that. We need an overall of the financial system. It
Mhm.
has to be looked at, and I know that the elites are not in favor of fixing it. They're not interested. They'd rather help the African lion safari or the environment. They talk about the environment, the climate change. They're not even interested in doing that, but their goal is to keep that for themselves in the future.
Mhm.
So it's a battle that we're going to have to do until I can see myself battling until I'm dead
Mhm.
and buried, and
Mhm.
we're going to have to do that. But like I said, one step at a time, and God will take care of the rest. I'm sure.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's how I see it too. That it's you've got to do all that you can, and I guess in a sense that you've got to have a clear objective of what is your intention, what is your purpose behind all of this. And to me, it's the purpose or the intention behind it is that each person has a sufficiency. Each person has a sufficiency. Don't tell me that we can't do it. We've got the technology. We've got the resources. Each of our nations, Canada, Australia, America, we've got all the natural resources there. What we don't have is we don't actually have the political will, and that's what's missing. And to me, the if you like, the bounty of the assets of the nation. I mean, the water supply in Australia is something that's discussed quite a lot, and the fact is that our water conservative governments put it on the market so that people could trade and turn it into a commodity instead of it being tied in with the land. The corporations instantly moved in, exploited the situation, and the price of water has gone through the roof. So our farmers can't afford it. Now, that what sort of madness came out of it, and that was actually originated from our Conservative Prime Minister. And to me, the another Conservative Prime Minister, of course, has written the laws in regard to it, and now it's just an absolute mess. And of course, that same Conservative Prime Minister handed over, what was it, 400 something million of government funds to a climate change, what would you call it, a white elephant of the Barrier Reef. There's nothing wrong with the Barrier Reef, but he allocated that, and this new Conservative Prime Minister has allocated 1,000 million. I mean, they're deluded, they're mad, they're absolutely mad, chasing rainbows, when in actual fact it's the community individuals are suffering, and they make out that they're on top of it and all that sort of stuff, and it's just it's nothing like it. They're servants of the money power. That's what they are. They're advocates for it, and of course the mainstream media is in the pocket of it, so it never gets discussed. If it wasn't for the internet, Eve, if it wasn't for the internet, these things would not even come up. So the internet, in my mind, is a godsend, because we can talk about it, and I know that they can shadow ban us and all that sort of stuff, but we do it anyway, in the hope that some of this will get out and some of it will cause an increase. It will cause someone else who counts to think a little bit deeper. So the street people, the suffering that they're going through, in my view, entirely unnecessary. Entirely unnecessary. There's no reason, this us over in the Middle East causing all these massive migration issues. What are we doing there? America was supposedly pulled out, and now it's gone back in again because it didn't achieve its desired result. What is it doing with another nation's assets and just stealing it? And it's doing it in broad daylight. This is the home of the free. It's stealing it, and it's the politics that's actually going on. To me, it's becoming more and more apparent of the level of, if you like, hubris that's going on in the political realm. It's I don't believe that this bloke south of you has got control of his government. I think the government's got control of him, and industry has got control of the ones that administer government. So it's really an outworking of industrial financial policy. So it is quite frustrating. But the street people, the tent city, this is a reflection of what's going on. When it gets to a point where too much power is in the hands of too few people, the power needs to come back. And that's, to me, is what the dividend, you mentioned the word economic democracy, is about. It's about placing sufficient spending power in the hands of the individual so they can make their own decisions. Taxation is confiscation. So reduction in taxation, an issuing of a dividend, so there's sufficiency, and then let individuals get on and make their own little bit of heaven instead of being destitute in the streets when that should be nothing of the sorts with the material assets that we have at our disposal. Automation, advanced control, robotics, raw materials, electricity, nuclear power. I mean, come on. We could do so much if we had the political will. But it's policy. The purpose behind what's going on is to break down society, and we've got to change the policy. We've got to focus on it and change the purpose of it, change the policy. Eve.
Yes, so well said. It's our leaflet. Although there's a cartoon at the front, there's the banker on the front page,
Mm-hmm.
and he's eating all this food, and our government is pouring wine for the banker. How is it going, Mr. Banker? And on the right, we have our poor person,
Mm-hmm.
which has a bone on its plate,
Yeah.
and the bone has no meat on it. But it's just to show that it's a terrible time, because even now, on the news yesterday, this may not have anything to do with what we're talking about, but on the news yesterday, I read this thing. Dentists are going on the news to say, you've got to put fluoride back in the water. You've got to put fluoride back in the water. Because some kids, they have like they have cavities and so on and so forth, more than ever, more than before.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's the problem. The fluoride is not what you should add. Fluoride is a poison.
That's
okay?
right. Yeah.
So if the government does go change to fluoride, now they can change. You talk about policies
Mhm.
or rules or regulations and so on and so forth. If
Mhm.
they put fluoride back in the water, it's to poison people. Basically, that's my idea.
Yeah.
And I think we should stop that, but that's a fight in itself.
Yeah.
But we still have to fight for these things because it's our right to have good water.
Mhm.
It's a right to have good shelter.
Mhm.
It's a right to have good clothes, and it's a right to have good food.
Yeah.
And the food is getting staler and staler every time I look at it because I go get eggs the other day. The eggs were $5.99 a dozen. I couldn't believe it. I said, "Well, they must be good."
Mhm.
So I brought it home, and we opened. My wife opened. She needed 4 eggs, so she put them in a bowl to mix them up, and they were flat. I mentioned that thing before,
Mhm.
but the fact is that this guy told me it takes about 10 to 12 weeks before it hits the store.
You're
10 to
joking.
12 weeks.
You're
How can it
joking.
take 10 to 12 weeks? So that's how far some of the food has to be bought. It has to be eaten,
Yeah.
but I mean, the farmers are dying to sell eggs fresh.
I know.
If you go down the country road, you can see fresh eggs every morning, and you
Mhm.
can pick
Mhm.
up your own eggs. Anyway, so that's one of the. It's just a minor problem, but still, it is a problem. It's a
Mhm.
problem of good food. We
Mhm.
must have good food. They're complaining that the kids are not eating in the morning. They're going to school hungry,
Mhm.
but that's not the problem of food. It's a problem maybe the parents have to work. They have to go to work early in the morning. The
Mhm.
father has to go to work. You organize yourself. Go to school. You're 10 years old now. You can do it on your own. Go ahead and
Mhm.
take the bus. Be sure you go to school. Be
Mhm.
sure you be a good boy too.
Mhm.
So the boy doesn't have a much of a choice, does he? So
Mhm.
now we have to feed them in the schools. Okay, so we feed them in the schools, but there's peanut butter in the food that we're giving them, so they're allergic to. I mean, the problems never end.
Yeah.
It's the money problem is not only a local problem. If you cut well, we say as social creditors that the money is the blood of the economy.
Mhm.
If you cut the hand off, or if you stop the arteries, something's going to go wrong with your body. Well, the economy is exactly the same,
Yeah.
and right now it's hemorrhaging.
Yeah.
The economy is hemorrhaging, and we're going to have to get a good doctor to fix all this stuff. And I have to go see people. I have to talk to them
Mhm.
to tell them that we must fix. Go to the city. Go to the. I'm not trying to be a hero. I just want people to know that this is possible. Can be done.
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't people sometimes listen? Most people that I go in the businesses, they listen.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay. And you ask them to help. If you feel in your heart that we need help, sometimes to buy the paper and ink to ship it all over the world and all that. So if you
Mhm.
feel like helping, you can take a subscription to our magazine, or you can give a donation, anything,
Mhm.
and then we're gonna keep educating you through the magazine.
Mhm.
So people have good thoughts. They say, that's a good thing you're doing, and well, so I hope it's going somewhere. I hope it's doing
Mhm.
some good, and I'm
Mhm.
sure it is. I have so many people to see now. I'm getting behind in my schedule, but I think I'm trying to say a lot in one sentence. But
Mhm.
we're trying to. I think you're the same. You're trying to educate the people, and we have the technology. We have all this that we can do this. The more of us that do this, the
Yeah.
more it will likely maybe it will happen.
Mm. Cause a ferment. That's exactly right. I'm going to cut across, Eve. I'm just going to bring it up here to the Michael Journal website, and you made reference to this the Michael Journal. Who are the true rulers of the world? And you'll find this particular issue of the magazine there, and you can go there and read it, which is beaut. and it goes all the way through to the last issue for last year. I haven't seen the 2019 up yet, but I have seen up to 2018, and I think that that's just excellent. So just
This
your
is a free issue, Ernest. This is a free issue. They can order hundreds, thousands if they want to
yeah,
of this leaflet.
yeah,
Anybody can order it.
yeah.
We ask them to help with the shipping if they can, but they can get all kinds of copies and pass them around.
Okay, I didn't know that. I think that's very, very important. And to me, the idea of a pamphlet, especially as a tool to educate people, is very, very important because what it does is it gives you the opportunity to talk to someone about it, and then they can use the pamphlet later on to just ponder the thought, to go back over it and mutter over in their own mind. And to me, it's an opportunity for education. The thing is that mainstream media are not doing this. Mainstream media are keeping us mesmerised, putting sort of flashing lights in front of a. I've seen them do it with horses to get them into the stall before they start the race, where they can't actually see what's going on. And we need to seriously take the blinkers off and have a look, because the tent city, the street people, this is not a pretty thing. And the fact is, it is entirely unnecessary. Entirely unnecessary. The cities of your local cities trying to accommodate these people and sort out, they're doing a sterling job, but it really is, in the overall scheme of things, a band-aid, because the system needs to change. Now, getting back to suggesting of a systemic change, if you like, in the financial system, you really do need to do your homework. It's not something that you can just throw it up in the air and hope that it falls in place. It's nothing like it. The fact is, there's science, there's mathematics behind it. Social credit proposals are and have been tested and tried, found to be true. I'm going to cut back to this website because I want to actually just navigate to the League website, because on the League website, let's have a look here. On the front page, we'll just move through the on target, but down here past the videos, you've got 4 books by Oliver Haydorn, um, PhD Oliver Haydorn, and the latest one is Lives of Our Own, Social Credit Economics, The Economics of Social Credit and Catholic Social Teaching, and Social Credit Philosophy. These are particularly important books in order to understand that the financial system is out of kilter. The financial system is out of kilter. And it's essentially a confiscatory system where it's handing the wealth of the world over into the hands of a few. The wealth of the world. If you consider the socialist states and the oligarchs who run it, it's no different in the capitalist states. The oligarchs own it and they run it. And the assets that belong to the community are confiscated by these oligarchs. And you've got to really come to grips with it. To me, it's the same problem. Collectivism, whether it's totalitarianism in the form of communism or socialism, or it's totalitarian in the form of fascism or corporate capitalism, it's the same thing. You can't speak out of line. If you do, your threat of your income, your security, your home, your family. You come out of school, there are huge debts to pay for your education. You try and get a house, there are huge debts to pay for your house. And the fact is that the education, once you've been educated, the bill's been paid. The reality is that the task has been completed. Why should there be a debt, a recurring debt to go on for so many years? And when your house is built, the actual natural world has completed the task. The house is built. Therefore, there shouldn't be debt to accompany with the new asset of the home. It's all out of kilter, the financial system. Now, these books by Haydorn will help you understand that. And I know that the Michael Journal has also significant methods of education, and I think it's really, really important that you avail yourself. You go to them, you start to educate, you start to bring your thinking into line of what is actually going on in the world, because it isn't as it appears. And this homelessness, this tent city, this is a direct consequence of the recent changes in the, if you like, the economic sphere of North America, where they shut down these industries. And of course, thousands upon thousands were then unemployed. And with no industry handed, all the industry handed over to third world countries, and the major industry that's left in the United States now is, of course, military industrial. It's to do with bombs and planes and guns and bullets. And that's the only, otherwise America would completely collapse. And that to me is madness. Why are we doing this? Why do we have to have a war in order to satisfy these homeless people? Why don't we just concentrate on these homeless people and shut down these military industries? To me, that would make so much better sense. The financial system needs to be taken into account, and I think that that's probably a good summary, in my view, of my thoughts. Your final thoughts for this evening's show, Eve?
Well, it looks like the elites are escalating the problems.
Hmm.
They have all the different things in place. But there was groups, like I mentioned, all over the world. We just, as I said, a report last night on the Michael Journal, French, English, Poland, Africa,
Hmm.
and they are working hard. We have one in Africa, like a full-time pilgrim,
Hmm.
and he's traveling all over uh, Central Africa to different countries, mostly French, but he does the English ones too. And he's doing all kinds of meetings and so on and so forth. So we have at the Michael Journal in Rougemont and in the United States, we have people going out and getting a subscription to our magazine. And the reason they have a magazine, it's a bit of a goal to attain when you do door to door and so on and so forth. It's a little bit of a goal. You want to find out how that person really feels. If they really feel good about it, they don't mind getting subscribed to the magazine to get more information.
Hmm.
So there are things happening all over the world. Also on our side, we're not a big army, but you know what? Jesus, when he was on earth, there wasn't a big army either. It's 12, and there was, I'm sure, millions of people in those days.
Hmm.
And the Christian idea went all over the world.
Hmm.
Everybody went into it,
Hmm.
and so I think that's what we should do. Is just keep in mind that we have to do education in the world. And it's not only complaining about the elite, but it's making aware, denouncing the system, but also bringing out a solution to counter it.
Yeah, I think that's most important, Eve, and that is that the Christian message has is more relevant today than it ever has been. And I think that if you like, what's gone on within the church, the schisms that are going on, is quite deliberate. It's quite deliberate to actually destroy the church so that it can't actually stand and speak as it should on these things. But the fact is that the Holy Fathers, over time, have brought these issues up and they have spoken about it. And some of these encyclicals are wonderful with how they actually open it up and show. But the reality is that today, yes, the church is in schism and there are serious problems. And so it's hard to identify um, what you should, where you should, and all that sort of stuff. And that's why we're out. That's why we're saying it. Have a look at it. This is a consequence of a financial economic system, deliberate policy, deliberate policy. Tent cities, street people, deliberate policy. And it is so, so wrong. Eve, thank you so much for this evening. I've really enjoyed it. I know it's not an easy subject, and the thing is that you've got to respond immediately to these street people because they need help now. But we also need to respond and get to the root cause of what's going on, and that's why we pursue this through Douglas Social Credit. Yves Potvin, thank you so much for this evening.
Thank you, Arnis. I enjoyed it.
No worries. Cheers then. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen.